Today I am going to continue with the discussion of Mom Jupiter. So we are going to discuss thoroughly the teacher as a curriculum designer. So I am your presenter, number two. My name is Casimir S. Ortalia. So currently I am teaching at Aklan State University by campus, and it is my second year of being there. So it is my honor to be to present this topic to all of you. Okay, so as a teacher, one has to be a curriculum designer, so curriculum implementer and a curriculum evaluator. So these threefold functions are embedded in the teaching profession. So every single day, a teacher plans, implements, and evaluates the curriculum in the school. Hence, it would be of great help to know how school curricula are being made or crafted. So we all know, or we had already discussed the summary or the introduction about the curriculum. So we also have discussed about us being the curriculum designer or the curricularist. So after with this discussion, we are going to have our self check. So we have here the following questions. So what first would be, what kind of curriculum design influence mostly the K to 12 curriculum? A for the subject centered, option A for this object centered, B for the learner centered, and then for the problem centered. So among these three, so cite illustrative example that relates to your choice. Okay, so next is self-reflect. So what are we going to reflect about? So we have three statements. So for the statement number one, schools that approach the curriculum as subject-centered make robots out of the students. Second is, in schools where child-centeredness is the approach, discipline is weak. Students are too young to solve life's problem. Why should they do problem solving in school? So with these three approaches, for the student-centered, and then for the child-centered, and then for the problem solving, we are going to discuss it. So at the end of our discussion, we are going to answer this reflection and of course for our self-check. Okay, so let's proceed to our formal discussion about the approaches to curriculum design. So what are the approaches to curriculum design? So we have three. First would be child or learner-centered approach. Okay, so what is child or learner-centered approach? But before anything else, we are going to discuss the learner-centered approach. Does it really matter in e-learning? So because of this pandemic, we are adapting the new normal. So it is more on having classes online or through by using their mobile phones, tablets, laptops, internet connection. So those are the digital areas or digital that we are usually doing nowadays because of this new normal. So every organization wants to get the maximum benefit from its e-learning initiatives. So we have here four reasons why we should have this e-learning initiative. First would be, a key element of any successful e-learning program is to keep the learners engaged in the course. So it is important about the engagement of our students or our learner in this course or to the course. Next is, a learner-centered approach is a proven way of keeping learners engaged and thereby ensuring effective e-learning. So this part would be the effectiveness of e-learning, or what are the approaches that we can use. So a learner-centered approach is one where the complete e-learning experience is focused on the learner. So it is about the focus of the e-learning approach. For example, we have the courses needed to very friendly, user-friendly, so that learners can navigate the course without any difficulty. So they should be able to easily access the content of their choice. So they can also skip the sections they are not interested in. Likewise, learners should define the courses relevant to their challenges and learning needs. So the course should include real-life examples that learners can relate to. Okay? So we have here the 7 advantages of a learner-centered approach in e-learning. So first would be improves participation. So the first step towards the success of any e-learning program is participation. So learner-centered approach addresses all the essential needs of learners, ensuring learners get a personalized and convenient e-learning experience. Next, let's go back. For example, let's have an example here in improving participation of the students. So, for example, if a certain learner group prefers games and exercise, so they are more on psychomotor, so the courses should be able or should be made more interactive. Similarly, if learners are more likely to access the course content on tablet or mobiles, the courses should be designed to support this need. So due to the minute of attention paid to learners' needs, so learner-centered courses ensure greater participation in e-learning. So it is important to consider our learners or our students in having or conducting an e-learning experiences that could be convenient to everybody. So it should be flexible enough. Next, the second one is the improves retention of knowledge. So given that a learner-centered approach places high emphasis on relevance and engagement, it greatly influences learners' interest level. So the learner-centered approach shifts the focus from traditional e-learning, which emphasize on the graphs and PowerPoint slides, to e-learning with more engaging and stimulating content. Like for example, if you are developing a course that the course should be or should have real life scenarios that are relevant to their day-to-day problems so that they could relate. Also, the course will have the certain elements which will make them use the knowledge they may have acquired previously. So this way, the learners will retain the knowledge better as opposed to plain e-learning course with a lot of theoretical knowledge. Next is boost performance at work. So a typical learner-centered e-learning courses or course will have a lot of scenarios, case studies, role plays, or etc. So those are the performances at work. But we can create or recreate something that would give them or encourage them to participate more. So how could we ask our student to engage and be interactive in our activities? So should be like for example, if an organization conducted a training, should the employee should have the quality guidelines or industry best practices that a learners centered course with a lot of engaging. Okay, so a lot of engaging and interactive content that will help the learners grasp the content more effectively. So this way, learners are more likely to apply their learning at work, leading to improved on-the-job performances. Okay, the fourth one develops problem-solving skills. So a learner-centered e-learning course has a lot of real-life examples, including games, quizzes, and challenges. Like for example, the course may have challenges and games involving the real-life problems, so which will force them or the learners to think for possible solutions or for what are the possible solutions. So this kind of training develops problem solving skills which is useful when learners encounter similar problems at work. Okay, next would be fosters collaborative learning. So learner-centered courses provide opportunity to foster collaborative learning that you should design e-learning courses in a such way that learners have to involve their peers, superiors in completing the course. Alternatively, the courses should have certain group exercises, which makes learners come together to solve problems and thereby sharing learning. So this approach not only encourages collaboration but also fosters teamwork. Okay, so in e-learning, so we should have or we should think activities that would encourage a student to work with others, to have a cooperation or to have teamwork with their classmates. Okay, so next is makes learning more fun. Why is it important that we need to create or to have to make it fun? So use games and stories in e-learning that makes learning more fun. So a learner-centered approach provides a lot of choices to learners. Like for example, If a particular course involves research, learners should be given choices or topics for research. Likewise, the learners could research or could browse the internet or the internet to look for videos, podcasts, practical assignments, and others. So with these elements, learning is no longer perceived as boring and monotonous. Next is facilitates personalized learning. So all learners do not have the same learning needs. So it is important that we should um, consider this, that there is no learning or there's no two persons are alike. So some may just like to understand the basics of a concept, while some may like to understand a course in detail. So also some learners may already have some knowledge about the topic, whereas some of them will be entirely new to that concept. So this is between the homo and the heterogeneous students or learners. So traditional e-learning courses will treat all learners the same way and may not respond to the needs of different types of learners. So things are different with learner-centered e-learning courses than the traditional e-learning courses. So we have here speak up and ask for self. So the child or learner-centered approach means that the curriculum is constructed based on the needs, interests, purposes, and abilities of the learners. So the curriculum is also built upon the learner's knowledge, their skills, and of course for their previous learning and potentials. So let's discuss the principles of the for the child-centered curriculum approach. So we have here five principles of the child-centered curriculum. So first, acknowledge and respect the fundamental rights of the child. All activities shall revolve around the overall development of the learner. Third, consider the uniqueness of every learner in a multicultural classroom. Next is consider using differentiated instruction or teaching. Lastly, provide a motivating, supportive learning environment for all the learners. Okay, so let's have an example. For example, School A is anchored on the theory of multiple intelligence in all its curricular and co-curricular activities. So it is more on multiple intelligence. So every classroom provides activity centers where children can learn on their own with the different learning resources or materials. So learners can just choose which learning center to engage in with different resources. So it allows learning how to learn, hence it will develop independence. So child-centered curriculum approach focuses on the independence of the student or the learner. The teacher acts as a guide for every learner. So the learner sets the goal that can be within the frame of time. So, child-centered approach is how fast or he or she learns. Okay, so it is about the independence or the independent work or activities or outputs of our learners. Next is subject-centered approach. Okay, we are now in our second approach. Okay, so it is subject-centered approach. So when we say subject-centered approach, it is anchored in a curriculum design which prescribes separate distinct subjects for every educational level. So basic education, higher or vocational technical education. Okay, so we have here the approaches that considers the following principles or our principles in subject-centered approach. Okay, so we have here the five approaches or that we need to consider in this principle. So first is the primary focus is the subject matter. So let's put it in mind that subject matter is important. Next is the emphasis is on bits and pieces of information which may be detached from file or from life. I'm sorry. Next is the third one. The subject matter serves as means of identifying problems of living. So learning means accumulation of content or knowledge. So teacher's role is to dispense the content. Okay, so in another setting, like for example, School B aims to produce the best graduates in the school district. So every learner must excel on all academic subjects to be on top of every academic competition. So the higher level of cognitive intelligence, the better the learner. Am I right? Yes, because it focuses the learning in mastery of the subject matter in terms of the content. Every student is expected to be always on top in terms of mastery or of the discipline. Okay, so memorization and drill are important learning skills. So it is important to consider the memorization and the drill that will improve their intellectual skills. So the school gives emphasis on the cognitive development of students and sets aside emotional, psychomotor, and even value development. So success means mastery of the content on this subject centered approach. Okay, the next is for the problem centered approach. For the last approach, problem centered approach, it is based on a design which assumes that in the process of living, children experience problem. Of course, we all have problem. So it enables the learners to become increasingly able to achieve complete or total development as individual. So this approach is characterized by the following views and beliefs. Okay, so we have here three. The learners are capable of directing and guiding themselves in resolving problems, thus developing every learner to be independent. So the learners are prepared to assume their civic responsibilities through direct participation in different activities. So the curriculum leads the learners in a recognition of concerns and problems in seeking solutions. Learners are problem solvers themselves. Okay, so learners are able to solve or to find what is the solution in every problem that they are facing. Like for example, School C believes that a learner should be trained to solve real life problems. So that come about because of the needs, interests, and abilities of the learners, of our learners. So problems persistent with life and society that affect daily living are also considered. So most of the school activities revolve around finding solutions to problems like poverty, the drug problems, climate change, natural calamities, and many more problems that are arising in our learners' life. So case study and practical work are the teaching strategies that are being utilized. So in problem-centered approach, it has become popular in many schools because of the thought of having or solving your own problem or finding solutions to every problem. Okay, so we are done with the approaches of the curriculum. So let's proceed to mapping. So we have discussed the corresponding approaches and examples of curriculum design. Again, the choice of the design is influenced by philosophical and psychological beliefs of the designer. So it should be focuses on the philosophical and the psychological beliefs of the designer. So it matters or it depends on the designer or to you as the curricularist. So it is very important that as a curricularist, we will be able to understand the different design models and how to approach each one. Okay, so in curriculum mapping, we have this three objectives. First is define curriculum mapping as part of curriculum designing. Next is identify the purposes of curriculum maps. And then lastly, familiarize oneself of some examples of curriculum maps. Okay, so last time with the discussion of CERSI, we had already discussed about the curriculum design. So it is reflected in a written curriculum either as a lesson plan, syllabus, unit plan, or a bigger curriculum like we have in our K-12 curriculum nowadays. In our discussion as a curricularist, it is important to know the process and tool in curriculum development, which is curriculum mapping and curriculum maps. So this curriculum mapping and curriculum maps will help us to create a better or to understand more about curriculum mapping. Okay, so what is curriculum mapping? So we have discussed already the corresponding approaches. So let's proceed to the definition or to understand what is curriculum mapping. So curriculum mapping is a process or procedures that follows curriculum designing. So we have here three reasons. So it is done before curriculum implementation or the operational of the written curriculum. So this is the processes and the procedures. Next is this process is an ongoing process or work in progress. So let's always think that when we say curriculum mapping, it is a work in progress. So there's always a room for improvement or for changes. Curriculum mapping can be done by teachers alone, a group of teachers teaching the same subject. Okay, so it's collaborating with or team teaching with your co-teachers. So the department, the whole school or district, or the whole educational system. Okay, so it could have those strategies. Like for example, if you want to create your own as subject teacher, or you want to collaborate with others and to ask help for other stakeholders. A map to success. So curriculum mapping is also called as a map to success. So as a curricularist, it describes it as a map to success because we have common questions that are related or are being asked by different stakeholders like teachers, us, parents, school officials, and the community. So these questions includes the following. So first is, what do my students learn? What do they study in the first quarter? What are they studying in the school throughout the year? Do my co-teachers who handle the same subject cover the same content, achieve the same outcomes, use similar strategies? Or how do I help my students and other subjects within the year or next school year? Curriculum mapping may be able to answer this question. So furthermore, mapping will produce a curriculum map which is functional tool in curriculum development. Okay, so let's discuss the curriculum mapping process. So remote learning helps reinforce lifelong skills such as time and energy management, independence, and creative thinking. So curriculum mapping is a process of matching learning outcomes with elements of the curriculum to create an alignment between goals and learning opportunities. So may be done by through institutional program or course level. So for the purposes of assessing program learning outcomes, curriculum mapping visually represents the key elements of your program and how they contribute to student learning. So there are many ways of doing things. So according to what outcome needs to produce, whatever outcome or the map will be made, there are suggested steps that follows. Okay, so first let's define why we need to do it. Because of these three reasons. First, curriculum mapping makes it possible to identify wherein the program learning objectives are addressed. Next, use it to create, verify, or clarify an alignment between what students do in their courses or co-curricular, next experiences, and what or co-curricular experiences and what faculty expect them to learn. Third is it helps identify gaps as well as opportunities of assessment. So there are many ways of doing things according to what outcome needs to produce. Okay, so we have here the following steps that is being suggested. So we have example A. In example A, we need to first make a matrix or a spreadsheet. Next, place a timeline that you need. Like for example, one quarter, for one semester, or for 1 year, or for the whole year. So this should be dependent on time frame of a particular curriculum that was written. Third one is enter the intended learning outcomes, skills needed to be taught or achieved at the end of the teaching. Fourth one is enter the same matrix, the content areas or subjects areas to be covered. Fifth is align and name each resources available such as textbooks, workbooks, module next to subject areas. So 6 is enter the teaching learning methods to be used to achieve their outcomes. Next would be align and enter the assessment procedure and tools to the intended learning outcomes, content areas, and resources. Last two would be circulate the map among all involved personnel for their outputs. And then next is revise and refine map based on suggestions and distribute to all concerned. So we will find out here in example A as a component of OBE, inspired syllables for the higher education. However, this can be modified for basic education to serve the specific purpose as we can see in the some maps. So let's have another example for degree program in college. So this example A would be for the basic education, but in example B rather. So we are going to find out the degree program in college. Okay, so in tertiary level. So first would be make a matrix also or a spreadsheet. Identify the degree or program outcomes. Example for B.Ed and BS Ed. And identify the subjects or courses under the degree. Like for example, in Gen Ed, Prof Ed, and major subjects for BS Ed. Okay, so for B.Ed, we have two courses or degree. It is the general education, then the professional education. While for the BS Ed, for the Bachelor of Secondary Education, for the major subjects, so like for example, for us, PE, so in MAPE, Music, Arts, PNL, or for BPED, for the physical education. So fourth one would be list the subjects along the vertical cells of the matrix in a logical or chronological order. List the degree program's outcomes along the horizontal cell. Use code or PO1, PO2 if outcomes are too long to fit in to the cell. 6.1 is cross the subject and the outcome and determine if such subject accomplishes the outcomes as either learned, performed, or given opportunity. Place the code on the corresponding cell. So the code would be for learned is L, performed is for P, and then for the given opportunity is O. 7 process is all cells should be filled up. Next, after accomplishing the map, this will serve as a guide for all teachers teaching the course for students to complete the degree in 4 years. So those are the examples, steps, and processes for curriculum mapping. So let's proceed to curriculum map or the curriculum map. So curriculum map are visual timelines that outline desired learning outcomes to be achieved, contents, skills, and values taught, instructional time, assessment to be used, and the overall or offer student movement towards the attainment of the intended outcomes. So a curriculum map is always a work in progress that enables the teacher or the curriculum review team to create and recreate the curriculum. So it also provides a good information for modification of curriculum, changing of standards and competencies in order to find ways to build connections in the elements of the curriculum. A map is geared to be a school calendar. So it was also redundancy, inconsistencies, and misalignment. The courses that are not correctly aligned will allow teachers to quickly assess the mastery of the skills in the previous grade to avoid unnecessary teaching. Because curriculum maps provide quality control of what are taught in school to maintain excellence, efficiency, and effectiveness. So it is also intended to improve instruction and maintain quality of education that all stakeholders need to be assured. Parents, teachers, and the whole educational community can look at the curriculum map to see that intended outcomes and content are covered. A map can assure stakeholders specific information for placing and alignment of the subject horizontally or vertically. Okay, so alignment, either vertical or horizontal, will also develop interdisciplinary connections among teachers and students between and among courses. So when we say horizontal alignment, it is called as spacing guide that will make all teachers teaching the same subject in a grade level following the same timeline and accomplishing the same learning outcomes. It is for the horizontal alignment. Next is for the vertical alignment. We'll see to it that concept and development which maybe maybe in hierarchy or in spiral form, does not overlap, but building from simple to more complicated concepts and skills. So a curriculum map is always a work in progress that enables the teachers or the curriculum review excuse me, review them to create and recreate the curriculum. So it also improves or provides good information for a modification of curriculum. So changing of standards and competencies in order to find ways to build connections in the elements of the curriculum. Okay, so let's have curriculum mapping in 2020. Okay, so we can see here for the institutional vision, mission, and outcomes, the vision, mission of ASU, the institutional outcomes, and then it would be next followed by college, schools, and goals and objectives. So for the vision and mission, then next would be the objectives, the program outcomes for the B.Ed. Okay, the course specification. And then so let's have here for the course outcomes and relationship to program outcomes. So you can see you have here the CO1, the CO2, the CO3 for the course outcome 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So to discuss educational, cultural, psychological, and sociological values of physical education. So you can see here the legend, they introduced, practice, and demonstrated. So it is added here for the legend of the program outcome. So outcomes based teaching and learning plan. So the OBTL plan. So we have here the intended learning outcomes or the ILO, the topics, the time frame for the week number, then for the hours of teaching, course outcomes, teaching learning activities, assessment test, and so on. And for the coverage of midterm examination, and you can see here on the course outcomes, you can see the course CO1, which is when we go back for our course outline, course outcomes. So course outcome is to discuss the educational, cultural, psychological, and sociological values of physical education. Okay, so we have your CO1 and 2, the combination of 2 for the course outcomes. Okay, so after that, you can see here the grading plan, then the performance target. Also, I have included here the rubric on performances, okay, for the scale. Also, we have included the learning resources. For our instructional aids, the course policies and standards, for the classroom policies, the emergency procedures, the suggestions for success, and of course, the suggestions from students and comments of the observant program or the department. So,